We're continuing with our little detour from our verses in Hebrews by looking at the Ten Commandments. This is all under the umbrella of Jesus the Redeemer and what he redeemed us from. So let's go right to our verses in Hebrews, verses 1 through 4. And then I will get into the second half of the Ten Commandments. In the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways. But in these last days, he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom also he made the universe. The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being, sustaining all things by his powerful word. After he provided purification for sins, he sat down at the right hand of the Majesty in heaven. All right, so last week we looked at the first 4 commandments. Now, I just wanted to tell you a little something about the 10 commandments. The first 9 are about what we do. The last one is about our heart. So just to recap from last week, I gave you the first 4. And they are, you shall not have any gods before me. You shall not make other idols to worship. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. And you shall keep the Sabbath day holy. So now we're going to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, next 6. And these, again, are things we do. The first one is, you shall honor your mother and father, so that you live long in the land the Lord is your God is giving you. This one's interesting because this is the only one of the 10 commandments that actually has a promise at the end of it. God says that if you honor your mother and father, he'll give you a long life and prosperity. And he's going to give you the enjoyment of his blessings. And this word honor doesn't mean just to listen to your mother and father. What it means is to respect them and to care for them. Commandment number 6, you shall not murder. Well, of course you shouldn't murder. But Jesus went a little bit further. He said in the Sermon on the Mount, he said, even if you hate somebody or wish ill will on somebody, you've committed murder. You've committed murder in your heart. Number 7, you shall not commit adultery. That's self-explanatory. You shouldn't. God doesn't want you to do that. But Jesus also said in the Sermon on the Mount that if you lust after somebody you shouldn't be lusting after, then you have committed adultery in your heart. Commandment number 8, you shall not steal. Right, you shouldn't steal. You shouldn't steal from somebody. But this commandment doesn't just mean stealing from somebody. It also means stealing from God. How are you stealing from God? Are you giving God your time, the time that you're supposed to give him? Are you giving him your money to go towards church and to go towards his purposes? If you're not, then you're stealing from him. Commandment number 9, you shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Well, that means you just shouldn't lie about somebody. So, moving on to number 10. This is the one that is about our heart. You shall not covet. Now, in this commandment, God gives us a list of things that we shouldn't covet. And that's basically something that belongs to somebody else. But what this word covet means is it has the idea of panting over something, becoming so jealous that somebody has something that you want, that you can't have, that it affects you negatively. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all 10 commandments. I'm going to ask you a question for each one. First one, you shall have no other gods before me. Is somebody or something in your life ahead of God? Commandment number 2, you shall make no idols to worship. Do you do that? Have you put something in your life that is supposed to be a representation of God, that you worship that thing? 3, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. I've already explained what that means, so have you done that? Have you ever done it? Did you do it today? You shall keep the Sabbath day holy. Do you go to church? Do you have one day set aside for God? 5, honor your mother and father. Do you? Do you disobey them? Have you ever disobeyed your parents? Do you respect your parents? Do you care for your parents? 6, you shall not murder. Have you ever hated somebody? Have you ever wished ill will on somebody? 7, you shall not commit adultery. Have you? 8, you shall not steal. Have you ever taken something from somebody that wasn't yours? Have you ever stolen from God? 9. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. Have you ever lied about somebody? And number 10, you shall not covet. Have you ever in your entire life wanted something so bad that somebody else had that it made you upset, that it made you jealous? Now, looking at these 10 commandments, you could probably honestly say that there may be one or two that I've never broken. Or you could honestly say you've broken them all. The point is that if you've broken one of them, you've broken them all. The Bible's clear. It tells us, plain and simple, if you've broken one commandment, you've broken them all. Now, as you hear these commandments and as you reflect on if you have ever broken them, understand that if you have sinned. I know I've broken some of these, and I know I have sinned. And what's the problem with sin? The major problem with sin is that it separates us from God. It does not keep us in the area that God wants us to be so that He can give us His blessings. Separation from God, if you look at these commandments and you realize the sin that you commit almost every day, you realize that separation from God and how negatively it can affect your life. Think about this. If you continue to sin and you don't have God's salvation, then your separation from Him is eternal. It's forever. It's not only going to make you miserable now, but you are going to be extremely miserable when you die for all of eternity. And that's the point that God is trying to get to us. There's 2 points to His commandments. One is He wants us to lead good lives. He says that if we follow these commandments and if we stick to them, we will have relatively good lives. If we don't, we will be separated from Him. So if reading these commandments has brought you to the point that you realize that you are a sinful person and that you do need God's help so that you can live by these commandments, then they've done their job, because that's what God wants you to see. He wants you to see that the life that you can live with Him is so much better than the life that you will live without Him. That's the whole point. Next week, we're going to get back into Hebrews, and we're going to see what Jesus did to redeem us. So have a good week.